Ferrari's strategy may have ruined the race for both drivers. George Russell is leading the world championship. Mercedes might actually be back, and somehow the American engines were the least reliable cars on the grid. Let's break down everything that happened in Australia this weekend. First question, are there too many cars on the grid? The 2026 Formula One season brought new rules, new regulations, and more drivers. If you had asked me during preseason if there were too many cars on the grid, I would have said yes. 22 drivers sounded like overkill. The last thing I wanted was a Monaco parade or something like NASCAR with limited racing opportunities in passing. But the Australian Grand Prix actually proved me wrong. Now that the cars are smaller, it's easier to make passes. We're not seeing those long DRS trains anymore. Instead, we're seeing battery-powered overtakes. And honestly, having 22 drivers adds more drama. More cars means more opportunities for incidents, crashes, and virtual safety cars, especially while teams are still trying to figure out how these new cars behave. Race starts already look a little chaotic this year, and if Australia has any indication, what we're going to have is a lot of drama in this season. Speaking of chaos, how reliable were the American cars? Because the opening race looked pretty rough for the manufacturers of America. Somehow the Americans managed to make a McLaren look reliable, and that's saying something. The Ford engine gave out on Isaac Hadjar, forcing his race to end early. Cadillac had their own problems as well. Valtteri Bottas ended his race prematurely and managed to park his car right in front of the pit lane entrance. Sergio Perez even had parts flying off his Cadillac on the straights. Between Ford's engine issues and Cadillac's reliability problems, it was a very rough start for the American teams. Now let's talk about Ferrari's strategy, because it might have changed the outcome of the race. I'm not sitting on the pit wall, so I don't know every detail behind the decisions, but it really feels like Ferrari is still making the same strategy mistakes we've seen the last few seasons. As a George Russell fan, I actually thought Charles Leclerc had a chance to hold George off early in the race, but not pitting both Ferraris during the first virtual safety car might have ruined that opportunity. Even Lewis Hamilton himself was questioning the strategy over the radio, wondering why they didn't bring in at least one car. That decision gave Mercedes clean air and confidence to commit a one-stop strategy. And then the second virtual safety car made things even worse for Ferrari. It came around the corner just before the VSC was announced. By the time they reached the pit lane again, Bottas' car was parked right in front of the entrance, forcing the pit lane to close. At that point, their strategy was basically trapped. You have to wonder if George Russell and Toto Wolff were actually watching all this unfold with a smile, laughing, because now George Russell is leading the World Drivers' Championship. And honestly, that's something I thought I would never say, especially this early in the season, or really ever. George has always been a dominant driver in the junior series like Formula 2, but he joined Mercedes right when the team started to fall off. For the past couple years, he simply hasn't had a car capable of fighting for the championship. But this year might be a little different. It seems like it. This Mercedes looks strong, really strong. And if that performance continues, George Russell might actually have a legitimate chance at becoming a World Drivers' Champion in Formula One. But let's not forget about the quiet driver right behind them, Kimi Antonelli, because Kimi finishing P2 after what happened earlier in the weekend is honestly incredible. He destroyed the car in practice 3, came back just hours later, qualified second, had a rough start dropping down the grid, and still managed to finish second again. That's a serious statement for such a young driver. This race could have looked very different if Kimi had gotten a better start and defended against the Ferraris into turn 1. George almost looked surprised when Leclerc challenged him on turn 1 because it seemed like he expected Kimi Antonelli to be the one defending him. But that's not how it played out, obviously. Still, Kimi recovering to P2 shows exactly why Mercedes believes so strongly in him as a talented driver. Another storyline from this race is Lewis Hamilton. I got really tired the last year of hearing people say Lewis was washed up, that he's finished, he needs to retire. But today, he looked competitive, he looked engaged, and he honestly looked like he was having a fun time. He was smiling at the end of the race. He was putting serious pressure on Charles Leclerc throughout the entire race, and if Ferrari had nailed that strategy, I genuinely think we might have seen Lewis Hamilton on the podium in Australia this year. Charles was clearly the standout Ferrari driver last season, but Lewis doesn't look far behind him right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if Lewis ends up finishing the season ahead of Charles. But now let's talk about one of the rookies who really impressed me, Arvid Lindblad. The Racing Bulls rookie showed up and proved he belongs on the grid. He beat his teammate Liam Lawson and even had moments battling four-time world champion Max Verstappen. And the cameras even caught him racing Max into the pit lane entrance. For an 18-year-old rookie coming straight from Formula 2, that's exactly the kind of confidence I want to see. It makes the races fun. No hesitation, no fear, just pure commitment behind the wheel. On the opposite side of the confidence spectrum, Aston Martin, because somehow this team keeps getting worse every year. Just 2 or 3 years ago, Fernando Alonso was fighting for podiums almost every weekend. Now it feels like they're struggling just to finish the race. These Honda power units don't seem to be helping at all, and the vibrations look so bad that it's surprising that the cars are even finishing near the back of the field. With someone like Adrian Newey involved, you would expect Aston Martin to be moving forward, not backwards. But the first race of the season was definitely disappointing for them. It was disappointing to watch, but not as disappointing as McLaren. Because if you told me a few months ago that McLaren might look like a midfield team in Australia in 2026, I probably would not have believed you. Oscar Piastri crashing before the race even started was already a brutal start for the team. And Lando Norris honestly looked like a midfield driver during most of the race. The only real battle he had was trying to stay ahead of Max Verstappen, who started P20. When you see Mercedes dominating while McLaren uses the same power unit, it raises a lot of questions. If McLaren doesn't figure things out quickly, that championship run they had last year could end up being a very short era. Overall, the Australian Grand Prix answered a lot of questions, but also gave us a lot of new ones. I'm still not completely sure how I feel about the battery system in these cars yet. Watching it on TV definitely adds some interesting element because you never know really how much battery a driver has left for an overtake. But one thing is clear, the 2026 Formula 1 season is already full of drama and we're only one race in. But if you've made it this far into the video, it probably means you enjoyed the discussion a little bit. So don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more Formula 1 content here on Podium Pit Lane. And remember, it's always a great day to be a Formula 1 fan.